and I'm at the Scott County Public Library, and I'm here to celebrate National Chemistry Week. Some patrons of the Scott County Public Library may know that in October, the Georgetown College Chemistry Club comes and does a bunch of fun activities for kids to celebrate National Chemistry Week. This year, we can't all get together. So what we've decided to do is to put together kits that you can take home from the Scott County Public Library and do these experiments and fun activities at your own home. Most of the materials are materials you'd have at your home anyway, but just in case you're missing a few items, we've got them all packed up here for you. There are two kinds of kits. The bags that are a little bit larger are the ones for your grade schoolers, about grades 3 through 8, and the ones that are more like a backpack are for your preschool to about 2nd grade. We've got a few special kits that are in green bags that we have included instructions in Spanish so that if either you or someone in your household is more of a Spanish speaker than an English speaker, you'll still be able to follow along with our activities. So I hope you can come and join us for the activities. And what we'll do is show you how to do each one of these activities so that you can be ready to do these activities at home. Each of these kits comes with lots of different materials for 5 different experiments, but there's more than that inside. So the kits will have all the materials in boxes, but you'll also get an issue of Celebrating Chemistry about this year's theme, which is sticky things. We even have some of these in Spanish. Plus, we'll have different information about sticky things like gum and like glue that you can learn more about the science of sticky things. You'll also get a few things like stickers and temporary tattoos and things to play with as well. For our first activity, we're going to be looking at watercolors and crayons. And you might be wondering why we're looking at these, because they don't seem like they're very sticky. But in order for us to be able to use them, they have to stick to the surface that we're using. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at crayons and see, do crayons mark on paper? And they sure do. I can't rub that off with my finger. Can I mark them on waxed paper? It doesn't stick quite as well, but I got a little bit of it. Now I'm going to look at watercolor paints. So I'm going to take a paintbrush and dip it in some water. And then I'm going to try and color on my waxed paper. All of the paint bubbles into little things. I can't spread out my paint. Let's say I wanted to make a heart. You can't see my heart. But if I do the same thing on paper, I can get the paint to spread out. Well, we can do a neat trick with this. What we can do is we can put something on a piece of paper with a crayon that's the same color. I've hidden a secret message on this piece of paper by writing in white crayon. You can't see that. Now I'm going to paint over the paper with my watercolors. Oops. Maybe I shouldn't have written so much. Now you can see my secret message. Hooray for chemistry! For our next activity, we're going to make window clings. These are going to be colorful little items that you can put up in the window, and it will stick to the window and the light will come through it. So for younger kids, it might just be simple enough to take an object and make circles or squares, I've chosen a little lid. As you get older and have a little bit more dexterity, maybe you want to try some different things, paint your own shapes, or what I've done is I've started painting some leaves, and so you'll see how those look in just a few minutes. So you can do this two ways. For little kids, probably the simplest thing to do is just to mix your food coloring directly with the glue, and that's what I have in my green glue here. And this is thicker, so it will make a nice sturdy window cling. And so I'm just going to paint this directly on top of here. It only takes a few minutes to do this, but you do have to wait for it to dry. So this might be a good thing to do in the evening and then check it again in the morning. So we let that dry overnight, and in the morning we have a nice circle. Now it didn't change colors, I just used red the first time. The other thing we can do is mix it with a little bit of water. And the reason we might do that is that it helps it make the glue a little bit more even, so it's not as lumpy, and also it will dry a little bit quicker. But if you use a little bit of water in there, you might want to put on put on 2 or 3 or 4 layers. So I've got some red here that I've mixed with some water, and you can see that that's a little bit thinner than regular glue. And I have a leaf, and you can't really see the red on there. It's darker than a normal green, but you can't really see the red because that is a thinner glue. And I'm going to put a second layer on here. I'm just going to spread it out nice and thin. I don't want lumps on there. And again, let that dry. And that only takes about half an hour or maybe an hour to dry. And you can put 3 or 4 layers on there. When you're done, usually starting at the base of the leaf, you can peel it off. And so here is a leaf that I made the other day. And if you want them to stick to the window, you just take a little bit of water on your finger, and I'm going to use this as a window. I'm going to spread that out, and then I'm just going to take my red leaf here and my circle, and those will stick to the window. Now, if you're going to use leaves, it's best to use green leaves, and the thicker the better, because if you're using leaves that are already fallen off of the tree, the brown ones tend to be very brittle and fall apart, and it can be very frustrating trying to get your window cling off of the leaf. Post-it notes are a great reminder to think creatively and to not let your failures get you down. The person who invented Post-it notes was trying to make a glue to make things stick, only it wasn't strong enough. What he realized was that, hey, if I have a glue that will only stick temporarily, I can stick pieces of paper to the wall, to notebooks, and to other things. So having a glue that wasn't very strong was really helpful. What you're going to do in this experiment, which is found in your Celebrating Chemistry, this is described in here. You're going to take Post-it notes, and I've provided ones that are from the actual Post-it note company, and so this is from the actual Post-it note company, and the square ones are just a generic brand, so you can compare them. And you're going to try sticking them to different surfaces, and you've got lots of different notes so that you can use a different one for each surface. So what you're going to do is you're going to see how many times can I get this to stick to, let's say, waxed paper. And what you'll probably find with waxed paper is it can stick a lot of times. But if I stick it to something that's a little fuzzier, maybe a paper towel or maybe one of your stuffed animals or a blanket, every time I stick it, the little particles get onto the sticky surface. And that means every time I try to pull it off, it's going to become a little less sticky. And so it's going to take a lot longer. Or it's going to take less time for it, or fewer times for it to stop being sticky. You can compare the two different kinds of Post-it notes. Then you can also try making your own Post-it note. You probably used school glue before, and this is made so that it is not terribly sticky, and that's because your teachers and your parents want you to have something that can clean up pretty easily. So just take a regular sheet of paper and put a little glue on there, and you'll probably want to give it a couple of minutes to dry so you don't permanently stick things there. But once you've done that, you can take this and see if it'll stick to surfaces the same way something else did. So let's see if we can get it to stick to this bag here. Can we get it to come off? We sure can. So you can make your own Post-it notes at home. If you've been to our National Chemistry Week activities before, you know we always have a table where you can make slime. We're going to make something very similar today using household products called Gluey Putty. It's not quite as liquid as slime is, but it's still fun to play with. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your white school glue, which is included in your kit, and you're going to use about 1 tablespoon of it. And so, or 2 tablespoons of it. So this cup is about 4 tablespoons. So if you fill it up about halfway, that's about right. So I didn't even measure it, I just poured some in there. And then what you're going to do is add food coloring if you like to have it a different color. It's fine if you want to leave it white. I'm going to make this purple. And if you only add a couple of drops, it'll be a light color. If you add lots of drops, it'll be a darker color. And we want to stir that up. Now this can get a little bit messy, so you're probably going to want to have a sink nearby so you can wash your hands afterwards. And I'll show you in a minute another way that you can do this that's a little bit cleaner. Okay, once we have that mixture together, then we're going to look in our kit for our borax. So there's a little bottle and we've provided you with borax. Now borax is something that you can find generally at the grocery store, but it's a powder. And so this is 4% borax, and so we've mixed about a tablespoon with about a cup of water in order to make this. And you can find different recipes on the internet, but it's not too hard to make on your own. But there's plenty here, and if you have siblings, then there's enough here to make slime or Gluey Putty a couple of different times. So don't worry about there only being enough for one activity. So you're going to measure out 1 tablespoon, and we've provided a little measuring cup for you. And so we don't want to pour this all in at once. And the reason for that is we want it to mix in with the glue, but it's going to make the outside part of it a little bit tougher, so it'll be hard for the borax to get to the inside part of the glue if we don't mix it a little at a time. So I'm just going to put a splash in and then stir with my stick. And you may notice it's starting to come together in a blob. It's not as liquid anymore. And I'm going to add a little bit more. And what I'm going to find is that at some point, I just really can't mix it with a stick anymore. And so this is where it gets a little bit sticky, or a little bit messy. I'm going to use my fingers to pick up my Gluey Putty here. And I'm going to find that if I squeeze it, I'll get little bits of glue to come out. And so what I want is to get that out from the inside, and then I can stick it back in the rest of my borax so that it can react. Pull it out again and keep playing with it. And eventually it will come together in a nice putty. And once you have this, you're ready to play. You can stretch it out, you can break it, you can mold it into different shapes. Now if you keep it in this plastic cup, it will last for a few weeks. So let me clean my hands real quick with a paper towel. And I will show you I made some blue putty a couple of weeks ago. And once you have it all mixed together, it's not nearly so sticky. So this doesn't stick to my hands at all. It's not making a mess. So Mom and Dad will be, and Grandma will be very happy about that. We can stretch it out and play with it. And you can try some different things as well. If you don't want to have quite so much of a mess, you can take the bag that your borax came in, and I like to put it in a cup just so that it will hold it in place. Then put your glue and your borax into the bag and squish it around in there. So if I poured this in here, if I'd made my putty in here, I'm squishing on the outside and my fingers are staying clean. So that can be another way that you can do this. Another thing you can do is to use clear glue. So I made some putty with clear glue and some green food coloring, nice for Halloween. And so you can do that with clear glue as well. So lots of different ways to make this fun activity. You may have noticed that you have lots of different kinds of tape around your house, and some of those kinds of tape are really sticky and some of them are not. This is because depending on what you want to tape, you might want to remove that tape. Like masking tape, you can stick to the wall but pull it off without damaging your paint. Duct tape is really sticky and is going to hold a lot of things together really, really strongly. So this activity, we're going to test out the different stickiness of different materials. This activity is found in your Celebrating Chemistry, so the instructions are in here. But in order to make this so that you could do this at home, we've already attached different kinds of tape to different colored cardstock, and we've put a material over it so that you can just peel that off. And this is our duct tape. And we have 5 different kinds of tape that you can test out. This one is clear packing tape, so you can't really see it. And of course we have some masking tape here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try and roll a marble down and see how far that marble can roll on each of these tracks. So your track is going to be labeled with a start and a finish, and that's because sometimes there's little bits of bubbles in the tape, and we tried to keep the bubbles at the finish side so that they wouldn't mess up your experiment. So what we're going to do is just lay the track down, and we're going to use just a folded piece of cardstock paper to have a chute for our marbles, and we're going to let the marble roll down and see how far it can get. So this marble only got about halfway, and what I might want to do is put a mark on my piece of paper to indicate that's how far it went. Now because the marble is now sticky, I'm going to get a different marble to try my different tracks. So the packing tape didn't hold very well at all. And now we'll try the duct tape. And the duct tape didn't hold very well at all. That kind of surprises me. So you can try longer pieces of tape to see if you can catch it further down. And you can also try different things. Instead of using these marbles, maybe try bigger ones. Or if you have some heavier rolling objects, you can try heavier objects and see how far they go as well. This next activity is for you to flex your chemistry muscles by using everyday items in your household in order to make your own glue. We're going to start with some skim milk. Now you can use other kinds of milk, but skim tends to work the best, so the less fat that's in it, the better. We're going to take about half a cup of our milk, and I've already heated this up in the microwave, and it's hot, so you want to be careful when you take it out of the microwave. You may need to use a pot holder so that you don't burn your fingers. So now that I have the hot milk in there, I'm going to add some vinegar. Now, if you remember the tale of Little Miss Muffet, She sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey, and along came a spider that sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. Well, curds and whey actually comes from milk that has started to curdle. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this vinegar and we're going to mix it in to our milk here. And how can you get a good image of this? You can see that it's started to separate. There's some liquid portion on the top and some chunks on the bottom. Does not look very appetizing at all. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour that into a funnel with some filter paper. Now the funnel and the filter paper are included in your kit, and I've already put this one in here because you need to let this sit for a few minutes and then you're going to have to let it drain for a few minutes. You can see it's still dripping a little bit. But once it's been sitting for a few minutes, we can kind of squeeze out what's left over of the water. And you can use a different cup or you can just put it back into the same measuring cup. And I am going to try and transfer this material over so we can use the measuring cup and you can see what's going on. And all that liquid can go down the drain. You don't have to worry about doing anything special about it. If you're worried about the chunks and you want to just pour it on the ground outside so that you don't clog the drain, that works too. But we're going to put all of this in here, and what this is the protein that's in the milk. So this is a special kind of protein called casein, and there's another kind of protein in there that's called whey. So she was eating her curds in the whey. So the curds are the casein and this is the whey. Now it's not quite gluey enough yet, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of water to this so that we can rinse out some of that acid that's in there from the vinegar. So I'm going to add a little bit of this and I'm going to stir it around, and so it's going to become a little bit more liquidy, so it's not chunks anymore. I can stir that a bit. The other thing that I want to do is I'm going to add some baking soda. So most people have baking soda in their home, and you don't really have to measure this out. You're going to use about a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon and a half, but again, you want to add it a little at a time. So I'm just going to add some with my stick, and what you'll notice is that baking soda tends to bubble when there's an acid around. And so when there's the acid from the vinegar, we will see different kinds of foaming and bubbling and whatnot. And I want to keep adding my baking soda until I don't see any more foaming or bubbling. So you're going to keep doing that a little bit. This isn't quite ready, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the next step. Once it is ready, what you're going to do is you're going to test it out. And so we're going to try and glue two things together. You have a couple of sticks in your kit, or you can try gluing some paper. And so you can just put a little bit of glue on there and stick them overlapping one another. Now I've done this a few different times. Here I have the two sticks mostly overlapping, so it's almost the length of just one stick. And then I have one that's kind of in the middle and one where I barely got them overlapping at all. And this is going to take some time to dry, so it might need to dry overnight, but at least a couple of hours for it to dry. And then we're going to test it out. So let's move our glue experiment to the side. And we're going to take, you have a cup in your kit that has a string attached to it, and hopefully that string is attached securely, but I will fix this real quick. And you also have a binder clip. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use that binder clip to attach the string to our sticks. we're going to have this, and this is going to be a little scale for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some weights. And I've just got a bunch of pennies that been sitting around in my change dish. And I'm going to try adding the pennies a few at a time to see how strong it is. Now I want to hold the stick at the top, not on the same stick that the binder clip is touching. So the binder clip is on the bottom stick, I'm holding the top one, and that way the only thing holding those two things together is the glue. And so you can see as I add different pennies, it's still holding. So this makes a pretty strong glue. Now you might wonder, is this as good as regular glue? So you can also take a couple of sticks, and these sticks here have been put together with just try the same thing with school glue and see if this is as strong as school glue. So we can see the school glue is holding together as well. Now I only have this filled up about a quarter of the way, so it's possible that as we add more pennies or rocks or whatever heavy objects you have, maybe we'll break the glue. You try it at home and see what works for you. Most of our activities have been looking at adhesives. Those are things like glue and tape that make two things stick together. But there are other kinds of stickiness as well. So for example, magnets kind of stick to things too. So this activity kind of explores some of the ways that magnets stick. So in your kit you should find several different kinds of magnets. And the first thing you're going to do is just see what things will stick to the magnets. So I might take my magnet and see, will it pick up wood? Will it pick up this binder clip? Will it pick up paper? So you can try different objects around your house. Can you figure out what a rule might be for what does stick to a magnet and what doesn't stick to a magnet? The second thing you're going to do is you're going to take two of your magnets that are probably already stuck to each other, and you're going to pull them apart, and then you're going to take one of the magnets and turn it around. So now I have them facing, this one magnet facing in a different direction. I'm going to try and bring them together. What you should find is that it's very difficult to get them to come together. They kind of want to slide to the side. Okay? So the reason for that is that magnets have what's called a north pole and a south pole. This comes from the magnetic field, and the field is an area that is attracted to magnets. So right now the magnetic field around this magnet is very close to it, and the field doesn't really extend way far away. So even though there might be objects on the other side of the room that are attracted to magnets, the field isn't over there. But the magnetic field on this magnet is close enough to attract another magnet. So each magnet has a north pole and a south pole. And when I try to bring the south pole of one magnet to the north pole of another, they easily attach. But if I try to bring together two south poles or two north poles, it doesn't work so well. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to try a little game. Now I have a game like this with lots of these magnets that I found at the gift shop in a zoo or a state park. These are shiny little magnets. The material is called hematite. It's made out of iron. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to see if these magnets, these are really strong, if we can get 3 of them on a note card at the same time. So I just have a regular 3x5 note card, and I'm just going to put down the magnets, and of course I want to try and keep them far away from one another. But once I've put 2 of them down and I try to get a third one to stay on the paper, they all come together. So try and figure out if you can place them in such a way that they don't come crashing into each other. Maybe you're really good at this. If you are, take the smaller note card and try and do the same thing. Now what you'll find is that if you do that with these magnets, it's very, very difficult because these are very strong magnets. These magnets are not as strong, and it's a little bit easier to get them placed near each other. So if you try different magnets around your house, you'll find it's easier or harder on different ones. Now we talked about a magnetic field. So in your kit, you have a magnetic field viewer. And this green area here has little black dots, and those little black dots are little dust particles of iron. And so what you can do is you can take your different magnets and put them behind the viewer, and you will see the particles will move either to be attracted to part of the magnet or away from the magnet. So in the middle here, you may not be able to see it very well. This is a lighter area where the particles have moved away and the particles have gathered on the outside. And so that's showing us where the strength of that magnetism is. If I move this away and put a different magnet in the place, I get a different sort of pattern. So you can try different magnets and see what they look like. Now, a fun thing that you can do if you happen to have magnets that are have a hole in the middle is you can make one of these. You can take your magnets and put them on a pencil or a pen, and it looks like I've got floating magnets here. And really what it is that I've turned each magnet so that north poles are facing north poles and south poles are facing south poles. Then I can squish them all down and watch them fly. In this activity, we're going to do something similar to making a window cling. We're going to make a stained glass window, only it's out of glue. So you need to have a shallow, clear dish. I've provided you with a Petri dish, which has a bottom and a top, but if you have the clear lid to, say, a Pringles container or some other lid, you can use that as well. And if it's not clear, you can carefully remove your stained glass from the lid and use it just like the window cling. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our glue, this is just the regular school glue, and mix about 50-50 with water, which I've already done here. And then we're going to pour this into the dish. And you probably don't want it to be too deep. Make sure it coats the bottom though, so I'm going to spread this out by moving it around. And again, if we have this with the water mixed in, it's going to evaporate a little bit quicker, it's going to dry a little bit quicker, and we're going to get some different patterns. But if you like, you can try this with just all glue, or maybe try with a little more water or a little less water and see how it works differently. What you're going to do is you're going to take food coloring, whatever colors you like. You can do one color or 3 colors, however many, and we're going to put some drops in our glue. And you'll notice the drops kind of stay in place. So glue has a lot of water in it, just like most liquids that we have around our house. There's a lot of water there, and so does the food coloring. But glue also has very long particles. They're called polymers, and they're kind of like spaghetti. So if we think of spaghetti strands all mixed in around with this water, when the food coloring tries to move around, it runs into these spaghetti strands and makes it a little bit harder for it to move. Now there's another property in there that is causing all of this to stay together, and that's called surface tension. So surface tension is what makes what makes liquids try and stay close together. And so if we have a bubble of water on a table, instead of spreading out, that's because the surface tension of that water is kind of holding it together in one place. And what we can do is we can break that surface tension by putting something else in place that the water doesn't like. So water sometimes goes by a Latin name, hydro, and so what we term things that like water is hydrophilic. So phil means to like or love, like Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. And so water is hydrophilic, but things that water doesn't like are hydrophobic. So if somebody has a phobia, they're afraid of something. And so one of the things that water is afraid of is going to be things like waxes and stuff like that. So our soap here has part of it that is hydrophobic. It has a part that's like a little bit of an oil or a wax. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of this soap in with the food coloring and kind of scare the water away. So I'm just going to put some of this in a cup. You can put it on a piece of paper or whatever. We just need to get a little drop of that glue. And I've got some, not glue, soap. And I've got the soap on a toothpick here. And then I'm going to take this toothpick and I'm going to put it into the food coloring. And when I do, you're going to see all of the color spread out. So let's try the blue one here. Forms a nice little branching pattern there. And I'm just going to flip the toothpick around so that I don't mix colors, and I will put this in my pink. And then I'm going to, then I'm going to take this last one and put it in the green. Now over time, those branches are going to kind of mellow out and mix together a little bit, so it's not going to look quite as branchy. If you like, you can stir with the toothpick, make patterns however you like, and then you're going to let it dry. So here is a stained glass pattern that I made the other day, and if I wanted to, I could use my fingernail and peel it out of here and hold it up, but it does take a little bit of time to peel it out, so I'm going to leave that in place for right now. Now the other thing you can do is, you know that many stained glass windows have pieces of metal between the different colors of glass. So what you can do is take a pipe cleaner or a chenille stem and maybe loop it into different patterns and place that in your dish. Now you're going to need more glue for this because the chenille stem is going to soak up some of that glue. So I'm going to add the rest of my glue here so that it really gets in there. And then we basically can do the same thing, but what I like to do is maybe make the dots of food coloring be on different parts, so that they don't run into each other. Instead, they run into the chenille stem. Get a little more of the pink in here. And again, I'm going to just add my soap and let all that color spread out. Or if I wanted, I could just use the toothpick and stir it all. Get that blue way down in there. And then we can let that dry and see what that turns out. So this is one that I did with the chenille stem, and if you're very, very careful pulling this out, the stained glass will stick to the chenille stem so that you still have the stained glass in with the border around it. So you can do it that way as well.